Thanks for joining us for another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement. I am here at the News Forum where all voices matter. It is time for our monthly panel, a great set of experts, and boy, do we need them in these troubled economic and political times. The Honorable Joe Oliver joins us again. He is, of course, during the Stephen Harper era, former Natural Resources Minister and former Minister of Finance. Sandra Pupatello joins us. She is a former Minister of Economic Development and Trade in the Government of Ontario under Dalton McGuinty. And of course, the Honorable Gary Mar also joins us. He was a provincial cabinet minister in the province of Alberta, also a trade representative for Alberta in Washington, D.C. Very important, very pertinent now. He joins us as head of the Canada West Foundation at this point. Welcome to all of you.
Great to be with you.
I guess the first question to Joe Oliver, we'll go around the table, of course, but just to get your reaction, we're obviously in the world of the start of tariffs from the Trump administration, starting with steel and aluminum, but there are other tariffs that are promised as well. Your reaction to this situation, Joe?
Well, obviously, it's deeply concerning because across the board, 25% tariffs, starting with tariffs on steel and aluminum and 10% on energy, will have a very negative impact on the Canadian economy. And over time, and not much time, will be driven into a recession. There'll be hundreds of thousands of jobs lost and exacerbated capital flight, which is already happening because companies, particularly some of the smaller companies that are responsible for so much employment, are, voting with their feet, and they're moving out, or they're not investing in Canada, and certainly Americans and other foreign interests would not be looking at Canada at this point until this whole issue is resolved one way or another. So the crucial question for the government and for Canadians is, what do we do now? And I would suggest that there's an immediate response required, and then one we have to move on, fairly
Right.
quickly.
And we'll talk about that as the show progresses, Joe. I promise you that. Let's get the instant reaction first. Gary Mar, what is your reaction to our present situation?
Well, I agree with Joe. It's a serious situation, but the economic modeling is very difficult to predict because the one thing that we don't know, which is an important factor, is how long will these tariffs be put in place, if in fact they're put in at all. And so I think that in the short term, we need to be able to survive our trading relationship with the United States. And we need to think about how our free trade agreement, CUSMA, is not particularly valuable, and that we need to have stronger muscle reflexes on how we deepen our relationship with the United States in a transactional basis and not relying on a free trade agreement. And at the same time, we need perhaps a longer term strategy that will be the silver lining between what we're facing now. Maybe Canada will be standing on its own 2 feet with better strategies in the long term as to how to build a resilient economy that is not as reliant upon the United States.
Sandra, is that your reaction as well?
It is. I think we should be very worried. I think we are right to tell the Canadians now, gird your loins. We've got some heavy hits coming, but to the Americans as well, you've got some heavy hits coming. And I hope that our retaliatory activity will be really focused on red states, as we've seen so far, and where it hurts them the most, like cost of their aluminum beer cans, so that they can say immediately they're going to be paying more. The dilemma, I think, is that there's no settled facts over who's to blame for what's going to come. The American Republicans certainly have been a master at selecting who's to blame for their ills. And I think that will continue. So whatever the impact's going to be will be, oh, it's a Canadian's fault, as opposed to the American policy that's having this impact on them. They're not going to stop until they are feeling it. And I think our American or Canadian leadership certainly focused on leaders with large companies in America, as well as the state governors,
Mm.
to say this is how we're actually being hit. That's got to continue. I know our group is doing that
Right.
already, and I think that's going to get ramped up.